Hi, my name is Nayla Mengel, and I am a spouse of a retired Marine. My husband did 24 years of service in the Marine Corps and now still works for the Marine Corps as a civilian over at Marine Corps Base Quantico. And I've been volunteering here at the museum for about 2 years. I decided to become a volunteer at the National Museum of the Marine Corps because I didn't really know much about the Marine Corps at all. I have a family that is very involved in other things other than the military. Some of my relatives are doctors, some are art historians, but none of them actually are Marines. And so when I married my husband, he was one of the very first Marines I had ever met. And I have a history degree, and so I knew the history of the country, but I didn't really know much about the history of the Marine Corps as it was tied into the history of the country, and I really didn't know much about the Marine Corps language that was being spoken all the time. People were coming up and telling me, for instance, what their MOS was and asking me if I was PCSing, and I literally had no idea what they were talking about. So my husband did give me some clues, but I thought, if I go become a docent at the Marine Corps Museum, I might actually figure out what a lot of this conversation means, and I might learn a lot of interesting things about the history of the Marine Corps. So. My favorite artifact has to be the Avenger torpedo bomber, only because it was the artifact I chose for my tour guide training test. When you become a tour guide here, you have to pick an artifact to talk about, and I chose that Avenger bomber. First of all, the name is amazing. And second of all, it's just very intimidating looking up at that airplane and understanding what it did in World War II. The fact that a President, George H.W. Bush, flew Avengers in World War II was kind of interesting to me. Of course, he was a naval aviator and not a Marine aviator, but you know, that was really cool. And so the presidential tie. And then I think it will always give everyone here a chuckle, because when I actually did my official tour guide test on the Avenger bomber, I gestured up to it and I was trying to think of how to describe where young Lieutenant Bush was sitting. And I said, if you can imagine him up there in his pilot's area instead of cockpit. Of course I know it's a cockpit, but I got so nervous, and no one here has ever let me forget it, that one time I called it a pilot's area. And so if I'm ever around the Avenger bomber, someone will bring up that reference. And so it's a very funny, cool reference about that time. Thankfully, I passed my tour guide training, but not without a few jokes before that. I have so many favorite memories, but my most favorite memory probably, or one of them, is a time when I was helping Rachel Clark, who is our visitor services person, with a conference that was held here at the museum for Department of Defense museums. And people came from all over the country, and they all were involved with museums in some way. And it was a time when they opened up the back of our new exhibits that are not yet quite finished, but they were having a lot of meetings back there. And so I felt very privileged as a docent, because I was helping with the conference. I got to go see some cool stuff that was behind the scenes. And during that day, when I wasn't specifically tasked with something, a group from the Navy War College came in. And they wanted to look around in the World War II gallery and in some of the other galleries, and I was available at the time because the conference wasn't doing anything at the moment. They would need me. So I ended up taking around a group of about 6 to 7 individuals from the Navy War College, which was really interesting. I learned a lot. They really told me they really appreciated the mini tour that I gave them, and so I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to not only be involved with the conference that day, but also get to meet some very cool professors. They were from all branches of the military, and I learned a lot about naval history as well. So I guess all that I'd like to add is that if anyone is thinking about getting involved with the Marine Corps Museum, becoming a hospitality ambassador or becoming a docent or even becoming a tour guide, I would really encourage you to do it. I'm not the most likely person that would find myself as a docent at the Marine Corps Museum because, as I explained, I really didn't know much about the military at all, and especially the Marines at all. And when I came in through the doors, they welcomed me just as if I was the most seasoned Marine, and they really get you up to speed. They teach you what you need to know, and now I feel very comfortable giving tours. I'm learning something every day, of course, but don't let that hesitation of thinking, oh, I don't know all the particulars about all the famous Marines in history or all the famous battles hold you back, because I am living proof that you can get there one day and you can be an added value to the museum.